there was something that needed to be resolved internally, right? So I found the ocean. I actually found my first grounding experience. And so I walked into the ocean and suddenly something clicked. I just lined up my chakras or something. But I went from carrying this tremendous weight of stress and anxiety and panic. And just a couple minutes later, I was completely free and clear. So after I got out of the water, all the anxiety and stress came back. And that was a very clear and perfect illustration that we are actually creating all of the stress and anxiety ourselves. It's actually being generated from within.
Take the time to remind yourself that it all starts inside yourself.
Wake up feeling stuck every day, then you gotta realize that it's all in your mindset. Read about the meditation, you go get around to it, you just haven't had the time. Yeah, I bet. Best thing that you could invest in is you. Could have the results or could have the excuse. Only one life, so take care of what you choose. And I ain't preaching, I'm just telling you the truth. Wake up.
Hello, and welcome to Bombastik Broadcasting with Kat, Kim, and Sue.
As you know, here at Bombastik Broadcasting, we believe on shining the light on all things bombastic and illuminating the folks who are stoking the fire in their souls one podcast at a time. So here we are tonight. All you lucky listeners are here, and we have a fabulous guest. His name is DK Warinner. And feel free to say it better if I did not say it best. DK?
It's all good. Let's roll it.
Is it? Did I do it? All right.
You did fine.
And he is, thank you. I got lucky. He is an author, and also he is the founder of the Centre of Calmness, which we are going to hear much more about. His book, if you'd like to look it up, is called Anxiety, Stress, and Overwhelm Are Now Optional. Now, doesn't that sound like something we all would like to read about and know the option? So, calmness coach, transition coach, all the things and so much more. So welcome, DK. Thank you for coming and joining us.
Well, thank you very much, Kath, Kim, and Sue. It's great to be here with you.
It's great to have you, DK. We're very excited. Calmness is something we are all looking forward to knowing more about by the end of this podcast. So any tips you can give us for leading calmer lives, we would really appreciate.
Absolutely. And perhaps we can start as I think we were talking about before we actually press the record and the roll it button, that y'all invited me to consider the possibility that we just entered a roller coaster that's got 4 seats together and the seatbelts went on and we're heading up the slope right now, right? So
right.
maybe we can start with a little color as we go up this steep slope of sort of what has you thinking that things aren't so calm right now?
Good question.
Go, Kath.
Really? Me? No, I can't.
Well, it's very steep, and the drop looks massive. No.
It's a massive. This is a serious roller coaster.
Which is normally, like, we choose to get on that ride. Who doesn't love a roller coaster, right?
That's right.
But then when you're actually dropping down the dip, you're kind of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have got on this ride.
We're heading into the storm clouds. Nothing but storm clouds in front of us.
That's right. It's not like white cloud, like one of our mentors said. We speak of sometimes, William White Cloud, but it's storm clouds, right?
Right.
And we're looking down at the drop and just thinking about how far down it is right now.
Well, and I would like to nominate Sue because my overwhelm somehow instantly went away when I started listening to your voice. So I feel much better.
Oh, thank you.
Easy as that.
I think we were just giving him pictures, so that was all you wanted, right?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you just want pictures like we were giving you with clouds and steep drops, or did you want more
I was actually thinking more practically. One thing about the practice of calmness and the reason why I founded Centre of Calmness is that it is a practical need for so many people, right? And I'm amazed at how many people that remind me of who I was years ago, where I was anything but calm, and it was not calm all the time. So we're talking about always feeling some level of tension, stress, anxiety, overwhelm, maybe even a little bit of depression going on, and probably all of the above most of the time at sort of this baseline level. And so I actually defined a term as I began getting into the work that I call baseline level of stress. Right. So, and I what I see is that we all carry this to some extent, right? We all, some folks are running super chill. In my experience, those are relatively rare, right? There's not very many people that don't have something to be stressed about. And then every once in a while you run into a super high strung. You can just imagine the guitar, or the ukulele, or the violin with the string really cranked up, and the tone is like super tinny, right? There's a few people out there like that too, and then there's the kind of the more masochistic type, and they keep turning the string, right, and keep tightening it, and just adding more stress and tension to themselves, sort of as a way of life, right? And I found myself in the place where I found productivity, I found love of life, I found ease and flow in a different place. I found it in calmness, right? Not in overstress, and not in driving myself so hard with stress that I would have success and just enjoy kind of the roller coaster drop as the only time I enjoy life. I prefer to enjoy life the whole time. So that's sort of the backdrop as to without getting too deep into my story just yet, sort of how this started. But I'm curious as to maybe if the three of you wouldn't mind just letting me know it in a brief sentence or two. What takes you out of that calm state? What creates the flurry?
Can I drop in here? Because what you just said was so true. Like, the masochist is almost of like that old paradigm of no pain, no gain. Like, I used to think peace were complacency, or like an I'm not living, I'm not doing. It kind of equated somewhere down the line in my agreements with myself as a young person, probably. So when you said, most like you thought that when you were going down that roller coaster and feeling that exhilaration, that was your aliveness. But you really spoke to me, as I'm learning later in life, that calm is actually really productive, really good for your heart and your body and your cortisol level. So that being said, I think some listeners can maybe relate with that. And then the question you had,
we were talking
in the flurry.
Yeah, we were talking about before the broadcast about the flurry. I use the word chaos, and chaos is not necessarily stress creating for everybody, but it is for a lot of people. So I just wonder, what pulls you out of your calmness, what pulls you out of your zen, your center, and has you so interested in learning about calmness tonight.
Are you going, Kath? I'll go.
I could, but you go.
You were paused too long, so I jumped in. So I like to lead a fairly calm life. Like, I work quite hard to make my life calm. So when it's not calm, I tend to panic a little more because I'm stressing out that my life isn't calm, on top of the stress of what's making it not calm. Just simply put, at the moment, we've got a whole lot of upheavals going on at work, and there's a lot more pressure on everybody. And I just I find myself getting very snappy when I'm like overwhelmed.
And it's basically a change of software, but like the whole software that drives the whole $1 million organization with 150 employees, so I feel like that's a major life event, honestly.
Totally. Major life events. We could just take that. I'd be curious for a comment from all three of you, and then perhaps I can find a way to kind of distill them all together.
I love knowing that Sue thrives on calmness, and that makes so much sense now, seeing your life. And I thought you were just like that way. I didn't know you had to work at it. So that's exciting to learn. I love multitasking and doing a lot of different things at once because it makes me feel productive. But when I take on too much and I can't catch up with it, that's what puts me into absolute panic. And time is a big part of that for me. Time is not usually my friend.
Interesting. That's a comment we'll come back to in just a moment. Yeah. Okay. Time is not usually your friend. Is that how you said it, Kath?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Passing the ball to you, Kim.
I have done some work to calm things for myself, but I do tend to, when I work, I know I create this myself, but I always get myself into a situation where it's just nonstop, like popcorn, stuff's just going on every 5 seconds. People have a question. It's just like a million balls in the air juggling. But I think that I've sort of managed to kind of remain calm to some extent during all of that. But I think the thing that really kind of gets me off kilter sometimes is like extreme politics, whichever direction it is. And then for a minute, I have to work really hard to pull myself out of the extremes.
Okay.
Like, I guess the hate part of it, the hate part of politics. Do you know what I mean?
You said, did I catch it right? The hate part?
Yeah.
politics. Okay, so that's coming across to me as sort of an emotional response to an emotional response. Would that be an
Yes.
accurate way
Yes.
of calling that out? Okay, so we have major life events, sort of like changing all the software all at once for more than 150 people. We have an emotional response to an emotional response in manifesting in a popcorn format, so it's sort of unpredictable as well. And we have just general overwhelm, where time is not your friend. Am I getting it right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You are
Okay.
a
That
good
is a great
listener.
summary.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. So let's take it like this, and one of, I would say, one of my giftings, but I would almost say more one of my passions is actually to take things that look different and find the similarity, the commonality in them, so that they can be described in the same way, and then it's a lot easier to solve problems when there's only one of them instead of three of them, if that makes sense. What I'm noticing is when you think about a major life change, which of course the many experts would say that is going to generally generate some stress for folks just by default, right? By the very nature of how much rewiring is taking place in the process of installing that new change, right? And then you have your upheavals and the hate responses of the folks around you, and then you have the multitasking. But what if the common thread across all of this is something that I would call expectation? I'll just let that word sit for a second without getting into it in too much detail. But if you think of it like this, from the expectation of all three of those scenarios, the major change, in a way, the expectation is that it's going to create stress. The expectation is that there's going to be problems with the change, and there's also the hidden expectation is that somehow most of the people going through the change expect that nothing's going to change. Right?
Bingo.
Well said.
And that's the one that is the, if you will, the well, I'm going to change the word because I was going to use the word killer, but that's not what we're after here today. So that's the that's the expectation that sort of crushes the intentionality of the change, right? It's that you've got a whole group of people that think that life's just going to go on, even though there's a major change happening, right?
Yes.
And then you've got the politics of, we'll just call it hate speech, right? And the emotions of the highly bipolar nature, right, of a lot of topics these days as they're being not only discussed but also experienced, right? And there's a hidden expectation there too that we're going to have those conversations in a level and even keeled format, and that there's going to be no conflict, even as we put a very polarized leadership in place in the U.S. anyway, and there's generally, in the past with that leader has been already conflict, right? So in a way that we expect there won't be, will generate some hate when things don't happen the way we think they're going to happen, maybe, which in my experience anyway is happening a lot faster in the last few weeks than has been in the past, right? And then and as we respond to these impulses, right, that folks are putting out there, then that can generate some turmoil when things don't start feeling like they're supposed to feel as they hit our environment, right? And some of that is just simple, what I would call simple emotional, energy exchange, and just the change of, if you will, the change of the weather emotionally. The part where that takes us out of calmness, though, is I think also an expectation of that somehow folks either shouldn't or can manage to govern themselves to not react in that way, when things, if you will, go south, or when extreme events begin taking place in a faster and faster format, which, at least from my point of view, I think that's a reasonably accurate way to describe what's happening these days, right? And I'm impacted in my business too with some of the economic choices being made, so I'm not immune to it. At the same time, I'm able to stay calm. So that's what we'll be getting to shortly, right? Now, the expectation in my mind in Kath's scenario where she's saying, or you're saying, Kath, that time is not your friend. Well, that is the expectation, believe it or not, right? That because you're starting there, time is not your friend. You're expecting time to not be your friend.
Yeah.
Right. And it's you mentioned the multitasking that you feel productive when you're multitasking, and it's the multitasking that creates demands on your time. So and I'm very familiar with all three of these, and I'll go through a bit of my story here in a moment, right? The multitasking is a really curious one, right? Because somehow we feel like we have a superpower of multitasking, of being able to multitask, and how many plates we can have spin in the air is a mark of achievement for the multitasking person, and especially for those who don't know how, and watching all these plates spin in the air and going, wow, that's a tremendous ton of work you're getting done there. That's amazing. Right? Now at the same time,
and I've heard
go ahead.
I've heard that multitasking isn't a good thing for you, and it's like not a badge of honor, but there's always 1,000 things to be done.
Yeah. And there always could be 1,000 things to be done. That is also an expectation, if that makes sense. One could, if you were to consider a different expectation, which is there's only one thing to be done at a time, what would that look like?
Calmness.
My job is done here. I know it's not that easy, right? Because there's the temptation to multitask and to get all of this that we can possible in every moment is so strong that and it's only being reinforced by the fact that you can have a phone in each hand and a television screen and two monitors and be running all of it at the same time, plus something physical, and thinking that that's all productive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you've done there. That was a little transformative, like just to switch the thought process there.
And that's and that's really what I want to highlight as the mechanism that my work essentially brings forth is that most of what we're talking about here is transforming how we perceive, how we think about what it is that we're struggling with, and to just take that perception and shift it just a little bit, right? So it's not like you necessarily, I'm just going to kind of pick on the multitasking a little bit. It's not that you necessarily want to get anything less done. It's more of how would you like to organize what you're doing such that all of it gets done, but maybe you don't have to work on 6 things at the same time. Right. So
yes,
it's just a different way. And this is where a visual visualization might work. Why don't we try it? Okay. If we could all maybe just close our eyes for just a moment and just go back to a moment in the day when you were actually and legitimately working on 6 things at once, and just get back into that moment and feel what that feels like. I'm working on 6 things at the same time. And they're actually getting done, which is a really crazy thought. They're actually getting done. So it's not counterproductive necessarily, but it's stressful. You're feeling it, right? How am I going to keep all 6 of these things balanced? Now let your mind kind of unfold that multi-threaded rope of the 6 things that's being produced, and just unfold each thread so that you can see each of the 6 tasks in process right next to each other, and just let your mind unfold. And maybe they have different colors, so maybe you've got 6 different bands, right? And right now they're all running together, and it's okay. But then as you go down the line and you look forward to the end of each task, you might notice that each of the band has a different ending point because the tasks are not all the same. And you might look at the length of each task, and you might realize as we visualize this that the length of each one of those is sort of as long as it is because there are 5 other tasks with it, right? So now let's take each one of those 6 and set it aside by itself. And so take the first one and just ask yourself, how long would that task take me if I was only doing that? And then allow the line to shorten to that length. Usually it's a lot shorter. And then once you have that, just set it aside for a minute. And then go to the second one. How long would that one take? Maybe it's a little longer than the first one. And shorten that one to its length if done by itself. And then put the third one up and do the same thing. How long would that one take? And the fourth one, and shorten it up to its true length if done by itself. And then the 5th one, and finally the 6th one. And when these are all shortened and you're just thinking of yourself only doing these tasks one at a time, and you're seeing how long they'll take, now take each one of those 6 lines, which are now much shorter, and instead of putting them next to each other, as if they're running a race together. Put them in sequence. First, we're going to do the first task, and you've just got a short line there. And then you're going to take the second task and put it right after the first one. So now you've got a different colored line right next to the first line. And then put the third one in sequence, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth. So now you've got this multicolored straight line. It's got all 6 of these things in there. And just get a sense of what that feels like to go down this line, doing one of these tasks at a time, finishing the first one, going to the second, finishing the second, going to the third, finishing the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth task. And then when you're done visualizing that, open your eyes.
That was relaxing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you may have noticed that it felt a lot different going through the 6 tasks that way. Did you notice that it was any longer? Did it take more time? Or as you're looking at it, do you think it would take more time to complete all of the work that way instead of doing all 6 things at once?
No. Oh, it's shorter when you can line it up.
I feel like you use up extra brain space moving back and forth, switching back and forth, because okay, where was I on this one? Oh, yeah, okay. And then you quickly do a few more things there, and then you're, okay. And then on this one, you know what I mean? As opposed to just flowing all the way through it.
Totally, right. And you bring up a great point. And though we might not have time to talk about the statistics of what they call task switching, the sheer act of switching between tasks is actually more stressful and more energy consuming than the simple act of working on a particular task. So if you're thinking you're working on 6 things at once, but really what's happening is that you're touching each of the 6 and then switching between them. So then you touch the first task and you switch between the first and the third, and then your brain flips to the second because it realizes that it forgot something and switches to the second, and then and I'm already probably generating a pretty stressful feeling just talking about it. Like
yes,
that, right?
We're already exhausted.
Yeah. It seems like an obstacle course compared to like an endurance stride.
Yeah, exactly. And really, if you think about it this way, what if the multitasker is so proud of multitasking because they're really good at switching, right? And even though it's not productive, it feels productive because it is a talent to be able to do that.
And that's why they need to team up with somebody who can follow through on all the quick things they started.
Well, actually, teamwork does help in the case where you have a multitaskers involved, right? Because you'll have someone with another perspective that can just say, well, why don't we just unfold this thing and do each one of these things, separately in sequence instead of all together, and right, that will generate a level of calmness by itself, right? But this unfolding exercise is sort of, you can think of it like a form of meditation, actually. And if you find yourself sort of automatically multitasking, you just take a moment, take a deep breath, and unfold it, and just see what's in there, right? And then think about, okay, what if I just tackle these things one at a time, and allowed myself to actually not work on 5 out of the 6 tasks in all the moments, so that I can complete one, and then complete the next, and so on and so forth, and just let that be a meditation before you begin. With a little meditation, you can actually line this thing out and be as deliberate and organized as we were here right here on the podcast with your daily work.
I love that you said that could be a daily meditation. I mean, I could see that happening with coffee. Luckily for us, our listeners can listen to that soundbite that you gave us of that meditation. That was brilliant, right?
Yeah, that was great.
Do you offer anything like that on your site?
Thank you. Actually, if you want to catch that particular version, this is probably the best place, because I hadn't actually produced that meditation before, and that's why I really asked, what takes you out of calmness, because the solution is different for each person, or actually for each group of people. So yeah, I definitely recommend that folks come back to this podcast and listen in. And I will definitely be recording. I haven't started my YouTube channel, but I plan to, and we'll be recording, some of these meditations. Plus, I have a program that I offer that's called Calm Within, that would include several much longer sequences, where I actually train individuals and groups to find that place of calmness and then leverage it, in finding their goals and setting a process in the process of creation and finding, as Kim and I have found common language, finding ease and flow.
Yes.
Lovely. I wanted to ask you, and if we don't want to put this in, we'll just edit it out. But Kim said when you guys were at the retreat, she gave you, or you took a ride to the airport together, and you were running really late. And we said, well, how calm was he? And she said he was very calm. And I know back a couple of years ago, it was okay to be calm if you were going to miss your flight, because they would just pop you onto the next one. But nowadays, it's a bit of an ordeal and rigmarole if you miss your flight. So I want to know what was going through your head.
I love that question. Talk about real time. Wow.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that before I even got on here, you were testing my calmness. That's crazy good.
Oh, that's right.
So
That's
how
right.
calm
We were
was
like,
he
"Is this guy
really?
gonna stand?"
Oh, wow.
Get on your
That's
calm
amazing.
meter.
Passed very well.
Where was his calm meter? Was it 80% or was it 95%? What was interesting was that I had just finished a fabulous weekend with a common mentor of mine and Kim's. I'm assuming that the rest of y'all haven't studied with him, but I actually don't know. Chris Duncan, and Chris has shown us some really amazing techniques that aren't really necessarily calmness based, but they're creation and ease and flow, and finding that place of your life that you just love to live it based, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Right. So I was in a very good space from that. So in a way, it wasn't entirely a fair question, but to your point, Sue, at the end of the day, if I would have missed that flight, it would have generated some how would you say, some chaos in my life for sure. Now the frame of mind I was actually in at the time, though, was in a frame of manifestation. I was highly motivated to manifest, and one of the things I was choosing to manifest was my presence on the flight and boarding it, right? So, and I was also wanting to manifest spending some time with my fellow students and colleagues and coaches after the event. So I had created a bit of conflict for myself, actually, because I was sitting at the after event party for a little bit too long, and then in the car, and I had forgotten a little detail, which is that I needed to turn the rental car in. Which takes time, because in San Diego, the rental car agency is not at the same place as the airport, right? So there's an additional step, right? However, I had my manifestation engine was working, because Kim wanted to ride to the airport, and even though I tried to talk her out of going because she wanted to stay at the party longer, she said, "No, it's okay. I'll go now. I'm like, well, okay, let's go then." And so by the time I put all this together, Kim had already offered to actually help me with the rental car turn-in, because she had another hour or two prior to her flight. And then she basically looked at me and said, "If I hadn't done this, you'd have been screwed, just letting you know." And I'm like, well, thank you, Kim.
I manifested all of you, but not really the last remark.
That's right.
I have missed flights when it counted. And I've made a lot of flights too on the wire. So because I'd made a lot of flights on the wire, I wasn't that concerned. But at the same time, I hadn't done my math, right? So I should have been perhaps much more concerned if I was aware of all of the circumstances. Right. I just remember one situation, and this is before I began either practicing or teaching calmness, where I was in a new position and in a new company for me, and I had really scored a win, because I was being invited to consider a new technology which required me to fly out of Chicago O'Hare to California to attend the meeting later the same morning, right? So I'm getting on the train, I'm happily going, "Oh, cool, I have 45 minutes to reach the airport, and then I've got another hour or whatever," and I had plenty of time, I thought, right? So I board the Blue Line train, and as I'm sitting on the train and I'm watching it go, I'm looking at the map, and I'm realizing this train is an hour and 15 minutes from the airport. It is not going to get there fast at all, right? So basically, I've shot myself in the foot by taking this train, and once I've done that, there's really no way off of it, right? So I'm on the slow boat to the airport. I show up at the airport. The O'Hare line is long as it often is, and by the time I get to the gate, as I'm running up, they are shutting the doors, right? So they've reached the 15-minute window, and this was after 9/11, so the rules were fixed. They couldn't, even though I asked them, they wouldn't reopen it, right? So I spent the next 2 hours basically begging and pleading to be put on a flight very, very soon after that one, so that maybe I would have a shot at making the meeting that I was missing now, right? And this is, a pinnacle of the career moment, and all this stuff was happening, going through my head, and the stress level was pretty high actually at that time. And thankfully it worked out. I did get put on a flight, and I called ahead and let people know, and I actually made the meeting, believe it or not. I was only about an hour and a half late after getting bumped to a second flight. And it all worked out great. I got to see the technology and provide my support to the effort, and became a memorable experience regardless. But I think back on that, and I think back to the stress of missing a flight, and that's the memory that comes to mind. It can be a supercharged situation. So Kim, again, thanks for your help, and and also I guess I'll ask the three of you, how did I rate with my calmness in the heat of battle, right?
Very
well. According to the legend.
The legend. And of any place to rate calmness, I mean, the airport would be one of those paramount challenges.
Definitely.
I think I was more stressed than DK was.
Kim just made me think about projecting anxiety. Because I think we've all been in that situation too, where someone like thinking that they're doing it to our benefit, and they're thinking they are as well. But it brought up the question of, how to remain in your calmness when there is a projection of emotions on you.
At the end of the day, we can't control each other, right? If I want to produce calmness in somebody else, I can certainly influence, right? Like, for example, with my voice, right? I can influence calmness. I can show up as calm. That does a lot by itself, in my experience, right? And then speaking calmness into a situation certainly helps as well. But at the end of the day, if the other person wants to maintain a level of anxiety, they certainly can. I mean, they can create that just like we can create calmness, right? And so the key to being the other party in the room and not getting triggered by that anxiety first is to, of course, to practice calmness, to have a place of calmness, and to find, if you will, your own center of calmness, so that you can leverage that when you need it, right? The other piece, though, is to recognize. And this might sound simple and subtle, but it is often missed. To recognize the other person's projection of anxiety upon you as theirs and not yours. Right. It's really tough for particularly empathetic people to do this. But at the same time, just simply recognizing, okay, I've got an anxiety input coming in, and it's not mine. Once you reach that point, it really, it can have an impact, an influence, but it's much less. The danger comes in when we feel that anxiety come in and we think it's ours, and we begin to fight it. Right. So if you pull it in and say, "Oh, I'm feeling anxious," but you're really not, but you think you are, well, then we're back to if I recall, we mentioned some time ago that when you notice you're pulling out of calm, then you'll work harder at getting back to calm, if that makes sense, right? And if you're working harder at getting back to calm, but the anxiety is not coming from you, right? It creates this vicious cycle. And the opportunity is to recognize, okay, that's their anxiety coming in. I see it as theirs. And once reaching that point where we can clearly see and feel that, then it doesn't have nearly the same impact, because you can recognize it as something outside of yourself.
That was something that we kind of know, but it's good to hear it put in words, because you forget that,
Yeah, exactly.
And then I guess just to know that you can actually choose, like you sitting on the train, you knew on the train, there's no way I'm going to make this plane, right? So you could either be sitting there spinning out, or you could just be like, okay, well, this is where I am right now. What's the next best step? What's my move?
That's it. Yeah. And we could actually apply the same unfolding technique that we just talked about, right? Where I can take I can take the work of figuring out what to do after I missed the plane, and I can do it afterwards. Right. The step one can simply be, okay, complete the ride to the airport without worrying about what's going to happen after I get there. And then step two is, well, get in front of an agent and figure out what the hell to do. If that makes sense.
What the options are. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I can even experience a lot of stress during that second time, but what I avoid then is all the stress of worrying about what that's going to feel like during the first segment, right, which is the whole hour train ride where I don't have any control.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you're making up stories about what the agent's going to say and what you're going to say, and nobody knows. Wait till you get there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
It takes up the same amount of energy because every imaginary conversation you're having with your future agent, it's like the stress is real, even though the context is not.
Some key advice that I received as I was going down this path of developing the practice was, when did worry solve anything?
Right.
And there usually is a silver lining to worry, and there it's not so much that it's completely unproductive, but it's only productive for a very short period of time, which is the signal, if you will. So you can think of this, and this is often talked about. That productive information that's coming into our system is composed of two things, right? A signal and noise. So the feelings of constant worry, concern, the tension, the growing stress, that's all noise. The signal is that first how would you say, that first gut feel of, oh my goodness, something's wrong, right? And that's the signal. Everything else that we feel after that is noise. So the key with that as well is, take in the signal, accept it. It's okay, right? It's not a panic until you let it become a panic, right? But at first it may feel like a serious pit in your stomach, but it's just a signal. It's just a very strong signal. And then you can take that and go, okay, well, where's it coming from? And trace it to its source and figure out what part of your system is reacting to your environment or pulling in a danger, a red flag, or whatever set that thing off. Or maybe it's a past memory or whatever. Once you figured out what that signal is, okay, now you can not only not react, with the churn, with the stress, with the panic, but you can actually respond and take an action on the signal, and then resolve the signal, and then you get to avoid all of that hyper amplified stress that would have come with it.
That sounds lovely.
I love how you said, like, there's the signal and then there's the noise. You hear the signal, and that's your cue to either that if you let it, it'll go into worry and spiral potentially. But that's where you pause and say there's a choice, and I could accept what's happening in my new situation, and go right to possible solutions.
Familiar. And let me put my story out there, right? Because I wasn't hatched out of the box with the Centre of Calmness, and there's a reason why I created that. And the reason for that was that I was in an accident when I was only 2 years old. I was sitting on, you can imagine these old school 10-speed bikes, and to a 2-year-old they're like mountains almost. They're so tall, right? And back in the day, the little child seat on the back of a Raleigh bike was on the back, right, way back, very tall, almost no padding. The seatbelt was like this little tiny little web of nothing like it is today, right, where you've got the kid in a cocoon with a blanket and there's no way they're going to get hurt. Back then, you just throw the kid in the back. You clip a couple of these little things that they used to put backpacks together, and that's good enough. And that bike took a spill that day, and so you can imagine the kind of the high center, and then flips on the ground. So so the child's actually in a pretty bad spot, right? Even though the adult can just kind of roll off the bike, no problem. But I took a spill that day when I was 2, and the worst part about it was I had a bunch of intuitive input that was giving me the danger signals of you shouldn't be on this ride. Somehow I knew that I was going to have an accident that day, and so not only did I not listen to it, but the accident happened. And that created an anxiety panic loop that would have me panicking riding in cars, and like you mentioned, the roller coaster ride. That is still not that fun of an experience for me, even after doing a lot of work on myself. Right, it just doesn't translate to exhilaration in my life. Right, and I've struggled with this for many years, and then I found myself in a corporate environment actually. So now you're not just talking about the little kid, in a maybe a physically threatening situation. But now you're talking about an adult sitting in office, feeling the toxicity of that office. You mentioned the popcorn and the hate politics, feeling that, a version of that, right? But feeling it directed toward himself as the new employee in a group in a very unfriendly environment that really wanted that person gone, right? And
Wow.
I had the intuition to know that, which at that time was not fun or productive at all, right? And so the same feelings where the same panic responses were being triggered in an office, if you can imagine that. So talk about, no control. Not only have to maintain my composure, but again, I got to sit with a group that to me was feeling like a very unfriendly place to be 8 hours a day. Right. So I went through this and went through this and went through this. And eventually it became harder to move forward than it was just to kind of, just give it up, if you will. And once I reached the point where I could feel that spiral starting, that was sort of my wake-up call, where I realized this isn't going to end well if I don't do something about it, right? So, of course, I took the obvious steps of finding a new job, but the deeper part that I recognized was that wasn't really going to fix it, right? There was something that needed to be resolved internally, right? So, I found the ocean. I actually found my first grounding experience. And so I walked into the ocean, and suddenly something clicked. I just lined up my chakras, or something happened. I didn't even know what I was doing. But I went from like carrying this tremendous weight of stress and anxiety and panic, and suddenly, just a couple minutes later, I was completely free and clear.
Wow!
Right.
That is really great.
So that was my first learning. Okay, this is something that that can be released. The second learning was after I got out of the water. All the anxiety and stress came back. So that was then, and that was
now I have to live in water.
The second, yeah. So basically, I'm going to turn into a fish, right? Or and live happily ever after, or I'm going to have to figure out what causes this level of high stress and anxiety. And really the key learning, looking back on it, was that was a very clear and perfect illustration that we are actually creating all of the stress and anxiety ourselves, right? It's not coming from anywhere else, right? It's actually being generated from within. So it's sort of the yin and yang, right? The Zen side of it is fully active at this point, but at the same time that became the core of my system of really training the techniques of calmness and helping folks find their way clear. So I formed a small group of my first students when I was first building and launching my Calm Within process. And I had one that had a very similar triggerable panic response, just multiple stress points, multitasker, like Kath, both family and business related combined stressors coming in, and a lot of unpredictables, including some of the some of those like popcorn events that Kim's talking about. And then the individual was trying to put himself through a major change as well. So we got a little bit of Sue's set up as well. So all three of these kind of effects were in one person, right? And over time, I've kind of made a case study of working with him. And over time, he found himself not completely free necessarily, but he found himself way, way, way more in control of that place where he could take wherever he was at, or whatever situation he might have found himself in the middle of, and just bring himself back to that calm point. And the key is once you've felt it, once you've had a chance to if you will, to allow yourself to experience it, and to not attach anything to that experience, but just say, okay, I am in calmness. I'm experiencing calmness without any meaning or other attribution. Then at that point you own it. And once you felt it, once you felt that one time, it's part of you. And then you can visit that almost like you can visit an emotion, right? Or almost like you can visit a place in your house, and you say, okay, I'm going to calmness now. And so for me, it's that quick. I just simply I apply a little bit of body positioning and that intention, and calmness is the result. And that's what I teach my clients to do as well.
Awesome.
It is good story. So that place in the ocean was really your awakening to this calmness, because you didn't know anything else. And then once you felt it, you understood that there was something, another way to live.
That you had options.
Right? Yes,
exactly.
That you had options.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was the kind of the ray of life, or ray of life. It was actually ray of light. The kind of the breath of hope, or whatever metaphor you want to. It's being able to see something different, see that there's something possible and available to work with that doesn't involve like the hardcore pushing through,
And I think you're glitching. Hopefully he'll pop back.
What he said about the ocean, though, that's really interesting, because I never thought of the ocean aligning your chakras.
Oh,
But that's what that gong and that sound bath felt like. And it's similar, almost sound like ocean, universe. Like,
I went to Sand Harbor yesterday and I was just watching the waves and I could feel like my body recalibrating. Thank you. Yes.
Do you think everybody's is different? Like, to some people it's the ocean.
Is different, but I feel
Water's
like
gotta be
nature, nature's
nature.
Because we're like 90-something% water, I feel like water is a lot of different things. But I think what Kim says is right. It's nature.
I agree. I'm always into water too. Like I can still go sit by the river or by Donna Lake. I love to do that. But I feel you could probably sit in a field watching, some animals, birds, or whatever.
Do you think
too.
movement is a thing? Like you could watch the sway of the trees, or do you think it's movement?
You could even just hug a tree. I feel like hugging a tree, you get that same thing.
Well, the grounding. I used to, when I saw that shaman, and she was like, "You're not in your body. You need to do a grounding thing." And I used to go in the Truckee River and hold on to a big rock. So the water would move through me, but I was still like not going anywhere, and that was grounding.
He's back.
Oh, we were just talking about water and how lovely it is to just recalibrate you.
Oh, completely. I still recommend that, even though I have a process that doesn't require the ocean. For someone going through a very deep level of grief, I definitely recommend spending some time in a large body of water like that. It just has a way of completely resetting or giving you the opportunity to reset in a way that's super deep and very powerful.
Yes. Okay, we were just saying, it must be something with nature too, because we all have our different experiences of being in nature and getting in that Zen place. I just went to my first sound bath, and how you said the ocean, it's like it realigned your chakras or something happened. That was how I felt at this sound bath, because we were able to stand in the singing bowl and have the gongs like vibrate on us. And it was I felt like I was back in my body, and centered.
Wow. That's super cool.
Yeah, it was. It was so cool. But
Totally.
Can you do it with any part of nature? Is it different for everyone, you think?
Interesting you mentioned that. I have a friend that connects with each of the 4 seasons.
Wow.
If that makes any sense. Yeah, just saying that there's a certain picture or vibe that comes with that, right? So I speak of connecting with trees, with the earth, with the water, as well as as even the air, perhaps, right? And being in the place where perhaps you might catch a bit of calmness just gliding down a hill while you're skiing, for example, right in the winter.
Oh, hell yeah.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be very similar to what you might find as you're on the ocean water as well.
What a great thing with the 4 seasons. That would be a wonderful way to get in harmony with the earth. That's beautiful.
Totally, yeah. And we've actually totally looped back to what Sue was mentioning with the major change, right? And leveraging these types of techniques and finding ways to sort of become one with, if you will, the oneness, right, of all that is, and to really connect deeply with these powerful methods makes it so much easier to go through a big change like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Go for lots of walks.
Well, DK, here at Bombastic Broadcasting, we like to say that a rising tide lifts all boats. So, how can we highlight your offerings? It looks like you offer group business calm coaching. And I know you said you were going to be opening a center pretty soon. And you are in Dallas, correct?
I'm actually in Houston, not too far from Dallas.
Houston.
Yeah. Houston.
So close.
Yeah.
Okay.
It actually is very in the terms of Texas, it's very close actually. So yeah, the retreat center is a little ways out. It's a vision at this point. I am launching virtually, and it is a group coaching. For folks that are interested, I really enjoy talking with folks one-on-one, to get an idea of where they're at and what they would love to achieve. And so probably the best way to get in touch with me to start a conversation like that is simply to get in touch by email, actually, or on Facebook.
Okay.
So on Facebook, I'm available as DK Warinner, and on email it's relaxmedk at gmail.com. And for folks that wish to reach out, I'd love to schedule 15 or 30 minutes and just produce it. I'd love to start just by producing a bit of calmness like we did here. And then I'd love to invite folks to experience Calm Within, which is a 4-week situation where we go through essentially four experiences. Not unlike what we did here. This would be the equivalent of probably one session out of 4, and then we just take it deeper, and we reach the point where you can actually find your own center of calmness and begin leveraging the practice for your life.
That sounds
Lovely.
amazing.
And I look forward to your YouTube channel, because your voice begs to be on a YouTube channel for meditations. Yeah.
There we go.
Awesome.
And
thank you for that.
DK is very good at one-on-one sessions and uncovering people's things, just for our listeners. I can attest to that for sure.
So until the next time, be calm, be centered, and be aware that anxiety is an option.
Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. So much more in this world that you can do. Wake up. Every little thing in this life that you're going through don't mean a thing. Wake up. You keep shining. You keep grinding. Wake up. All is aligning. All you gotta do. Wake up. My man Mo said that the reason that the world fucked up is cause everybody lazy. Positivity is corny to them, but they still gon' complain about the bad going on. Shit crazy. So I just had to drop a little project. I don't know what the object is, but this feels good. If you too hood for the good vibe, sorry I ain't got nothing for you. Why should I?
You shouldn't. We out here doing the things that y'all wouldn't. Life could be a sweet ride. Proof is in the pudding. These guys with the weak vibes, I'll show them where to put it. Down bad, I was looking for the answer. Mind all mad, taking over like a cancer. Canceled the sub plans, came from up above. Told me everything but doing, showing love. And I gotta wake up.
So much more in this world that you can do. Wake up. Every little thing in this life that you're going through don't mean a thing. Wake up. You keep shining. You keep grinding. Wake up. All is aligning. All you gotta do. Wake up.
I've been getting so high, head up in the clouds. I don't ever wanna come down, but I gotta
wake up.
Ain't enough time to be down. Bust a smile, cause it's yet another day that I'm allowed to
wake up.
Feeling blessed to be alive, man. Not long till we thriving. Take the time to remind yourself that it all starts inside yourself. Most.
Wake up feeling stuck every day, then you gotta realize that it's all in your mindset. Read about that meditation, you go get around to it, you just haven't had the time yet. Yeah, I bet. Best thing that you could invest in is you. Could have the results or could have the excuse. Only one life, so take care of what you choose. And I ain't preaching, I'm just telling you the truth. Wake up. So much more in this world that you can do. Wake up. Every little thing in this life that you're going through don't mean a thing. Wake up. You keep shining. You keep grinding.